Hello, my name is Brian Seaman, and this is That Rings a Bell. This week, we're going to be jumping into the topic I've probably been asked the most about in 2020, and that is virtual ensembles. I taught a class at this summer's national seminar on putting together a virtual ensemble. And if you are unable to attend seminar this summer or unable to take my class, I have good news for you. Handbell Musicians of America is making that class and several others from this summer's national seminar available through the Virtual Bell Academy. I'll put a link to that Virtual Bell Academy in the description down below. Go ahead and check that out. Classes such as my virtual ensemble class, as well as the class that Nick Hansen and I taught on keeping up handbell skills without access to handbells, which is especially valid during 2020, but has lots of great information for even when we are able to get back and ring together in person in the future. Both of those classes and others are available through the Virtual Bell Academy. This week's video is a supplement to my class from seminar, this time specifically focusing on the editing process. We're going to be going through starting from the moment when I receive all of the submissions all the way through to exporting the video, and we'll follow along my step-by-step process for editing the audio as well as the video to line everything up and put everything together in one complete ensemble. So let's dive in. All right, so we're here with a brand new Adobe Audition multi-track file. I'm going to go ahead and bring in all of the recorded submissions. These are some video and audio together, and this will strip out the audio portion of that. And these are some that are recorded audio only. First thing I'm going to do is take the click track and drag that in. And I'm going to go ahead and name this click track. That's going to be the reference for everything else I pull in and where I line up all parts. So we're going to go in, we're going to start pulling in piece by piece for part one. And we're going to go in and edit these to do any like simple noise reduction, remove any page turn sounds or floor creaks or any other extraneous noise that isn't bell ringing. First thing we're going to do is clear out any room noise. So right here at the very beginning, there's a little bit, there in the silence, you can still hear a little bit of that room hiss kind of noise that you get from like an air conditioner unit or just general ambient room noise that the microphone picks up that your human ear is used to kind of just tuning out. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight a little bit of that just ambient room hiss sound. Go up into noise reduction, and we're going to capture the noise print. So what this basically does is takes this little highlighted bit, which is nothing but just room noise, and says that this is the sound that we are looking for. And now I'm going to go and select the whole document, just Control A there, and go into the noise reduction process. And now we're going to tell Adobe Audition to find anywhere in this entire clip that sounded like that little sample that we just highlighted before and remove it. So it's going to remove any frequencies it hears that match that hiss. So we're going to go ahead and apply. Sometimes, if you don't know what you're doing, go ahead and use the default settings. Sometimes it doesn't quite get it on the first time if you're using the default settings. Like I can hear still a little bit more room noise there. So just go ahead and highlight another small section. And try that process again. So now what I'm going to do is go and look through and find any sounds that don't look like bell ringing. So at this point, any noise during silence like this. Yeah, there's a little bit of noise in a lot of this. Here we go. Yeah, so there's starting right about there into that. It sounds like the clapper of the bell just making a little click noise. So we're gonna go ahead and we're just gonna silence that. What else? So make sure that this is indeed a bell. Yes. I'm not sure about what this is. Okay, so there's, yeah, let me go ahead and take that entire bit and silence that out. So there's a little bit of bell overtone that didn't quite get damped out, as well as a page turn. That was just a little bit of overtone that didn't get damped out. That I'll leave that. And then I'm going to clear off anything at the very end of the track here. All right, that one is mostly prepped. Now we're going to go ahead and add the next one and do the same process. Okay, so at this point I've done a basic cleanup of all of the audio tracks, removing any excess noise. I've trimmed out everything up to the clap, and I've trimmed out everything at the very end of these as well. So now we're going to go and start to line this up. And the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to find where the clap is in the click track. All right, so it's that one. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. That one. I'm going to put the cursor right there. Now I'm going to line up these claps with the clap and the click track, and this will give us our starting point. There's one track that does not have a clap. We'll come back to that in a minute, and I'll find out where that goes. But that's okay, because those claps were covered in excess in this track. This is a rough start. We will really look at exactly lining them up next. So the clap gives you a good start. At that point, we then go and we'll line up track by track with what the individual parts are. So we're going to start with part 1 here. Solo the click track and solo position 1. So all I'm hearing right now are the click track and the recording of position 1. Claps line up. I'm going to go ahead and skip over to here. Pretty good. I'm going to zoom in a lot here. Really try to line this up. Slightly later, I'm going to bump that up a little bit to try to line up the strike of the bell with the click of the metronome. Good. All right, so that's pretty good. We're going to try part position 2 now. Slightly late. I'm going to slide that up a little bit. I use this cursor a lot to line up with the strike of the metronome, to line up the strike of the bell, because that way, no matter how far we get from the click track, even if I have to scroll down, I still know where that point is. Here we go. Position 4 is the one that doesn't have a clap. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up the music and find out where position 4 plays. Beat 3 and 4 of measure 3. So I'm going to go and find that in the music. So that's measure 1, measure 2, 3. 2, 3. Okay. So this is where in the metronome, this is beat 3. I'm going off of position 3, who has the G4 that starts that. This is beat 3 of measure 3. I'm going to go into this file itself, and I'm going to highlight from there up to delete that. And this will give us a pretty good idea. Great. All right, now I'm going to go and listen to all of these together without the click track and just see how things line up. So I'm going to go ahead and fix this right here. So, anytime you have to move a note, what you need to do is this C6 needs to be right where that ends. So I'm going to look at this, and I am taking out 0.413 seconds. So I'm going to delete that. But now over here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert silence for 0.413. And so what that will do is the whole overall length of the track did not change, because what I took out from one place I put back in another place, but I moved these two notes one beat earlier. So now this should line up. Great. Now is when you begin to balance all of these parts. So you can hear that some are definitely louder than others. So what I'm going to do is go into each of these individual tracks, and we're going to amplify this so that the majority of the notes, the highest peak is around -6. So right now the majority of this is around -15. So we're actually going to raise this. We're going to raise this up 6 and see where things fall. So this is the point now when I start using the volume knobs in here. I will adjust as we play through. So I can tell right now that this is loud. So we're gonna crank that down. Great. So at this point, I've got a rough draft of the audio file. So we're going to go up here. I'm going to save and export what they call multi-track mix down. And so what this does is this takes all of the tracks all together and puts them down into one track. So it takes all 11 parts, condenses it down, boom, into one track. So now I've got everybody's claps, and all of the bell parts. In a rough format. This is now what I'm going to take and bring over to Premiere that we are then going to use to line up all of the video tracks. All right, so we're here in a new Adobe Premiere Pro window. We're going to go ahead and import all of the video submissions. Open. And we are also going to import the mixdown track that we just made. All right, I'm going to drag the mixdown track into the timeline, much as the click track was used in the audio editing process to line everything up. This will be our base to line up all of our videos as well. So I'm going to go ahead. I need to add a couple more tracks here. We need 9 total, so I'm going to add 6 more video tracks. I don't need any more audio. Great. Starting with position 1. Here's Matt. I'm going to go and find the point where, the clap is. Go back a little bit before the clap and mark in, which in Adobe is just an I. And that marks the in place. So when you drag this into the timeline, where it will start in the timeline. And then the same thing of the out. Out, which the keyboard shortcut is O. So now when I drag this in, from this in point there to that out point there will be what gets dragged down to the timeline itself, not necessarily the whole audio file or the whole video file. So this is useful for trimming out some of the excess at the beginning or at the end of any of these submitted recordings. So I'm going to go and the same thing that we did with the click track. I'm going to find the click of the mixdown track, drag the clap in Matt's video. All right, I want to now, I'm going to mute the audio that's coming from the video. So we're only hearing the mix down, and see if this looks like what it's playing. Yeah, that sounds good. So then we're going to go ahead and we're going to delete that track. I want just the audio, or just the video from that. Next, we're going to add in Barbara. Great. I'm going to go ahead and, as Amanda is a little bit smaller, I'm going to go ahead and hit scale to frame size, and that will bring Amanda up to the same size as everybody else. Great. So at this point, all of the clips have been dropped in and they've been all lined up. So now we're going to go into Effect Controls. And we are going to scale this down. I've got 9 video clips, so I want 3 by 3. So we're going to scale this down to a third size, 33%. And then I'm going to drag this position-wise down to the bottom, which I'm going to say is 900. And then all the way to the right, which I'm going to say 1600. So I just play around with these until I get to a point that looks right, and I usually just pick the closest whole number. What that is that is the number that corresponds to the very center of this video, where it falls in the pixel grid of this whole window. So you've got 1,920 pixels across, 1,080 pixels down. So the middle of this video is 320 pixels over and 180 pixels down. So at this point now, all of these clips are in here, and these all should be lined up. Great, looks good. So now what we're going to do is go back into Adobe Audition, and we're going to, this mix down file, we're going to clean this up. So I'm going to clear out all of the claps. I'm going to do silence, so that way this is still the same length and I don't have to worry about lining everything up again. We can trim that when we export the video. But I am going to delete all the excess at the very end. I'm also going to go through and do a couple of effects. So I do a filter, which cuts down the super high frequencies of the bell and raises the bass a little bit, especially when everybody's recording in a small living room. Those super high overtone frequencies tend to ring out in that space a lot, so those come through. So the filter will cut down on some of those really high frequencies and boost the bass a little bit. And the same thing, this reverb. If you play in a large stone church sanctuary and you do that mart or ring touch and it continues to ring in that space, that's the reverb. When you're in your living room at home with lots of carpeted furniture, that doesn't happen. So we're adding that a little bit more back in. So we're going to go ahead and apply both those filter and the reverb. I'm also going to lower the volume just a little bit on that output. So to hear what this sounds like with the filter and reverb on or not on, we're going to go to the end here a little bit. Here we go. So I'm going to play this first from right here, this clip, without these filters. So this is how it was recorded. That same section now with these added in. So that just cuts out a lot of the really harsh, shrill sounds that especially we get from recording on cell phone microphones, from recording in living rooms and places that aren't recording studios, on equipment that isn't professional recording equipment, on a instrument that has a lot of high frequency overtones. So we're going to go ahead and apply that. We're going to go ahead and save. Sometimes you need to save a different file name. So we're just going to call that final. I'm going to drop this in. Since we didn't delete any time off of the front, I can drop this in right at the beginning of the timeline and everything should still be lined up. Great. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and trim off everybody so that all video clips start at the same place. So we do this, and then we're going to do all, and I'm going to drag that back to the beginning of the timeline. That should move everything together. What I'm going to do for each of these now, so we're going to do a fade in because I see people still grabbing bells here at the very beginning. Yeah, including myself. So we're going to go through and do a video transition, dissolve black. We're going to add that in to every one of these. And we're going to do the same thing at the very end here. Great. Go ahead and save that. And then we're going to export this. Completion in G minor. And export. So I hope this video was helpful to those of you jumping into virtual ensemble settings this fall and beyond. If you have any questions about editing virtual ensembles, go ahead and send us an email. And as always, if you have any suggestions for future topics or questions you'd like answered to, you may also send us an email. The email for that is trabvlog@gmail.com. So keep those questions coming in, and we'll do our best to address those in future videos. See you next week. I'm going to go through and delete everything up to the clap of thunder.